Okay, let's see if I can manifest good things. Hi. So in today's video, I thought I would so if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I'm starting a thing where every week I'm starting to talk more about mental health on like the Q&A little thing, to basically just open up the conversation a bit more about mental health, because if you followed me for a while, you'll know that I'm very passionate, a little bit passionate about mental health. And obviously, as we've just gone into the second lockdown, I wanted to start talking about it more and making sure that people are aware of sort of like where they can go and people they can talk to, and just sort of like normalize the conversation a little bit more. So I haven't gone through any of these questions. I probably should have. This is very unplanned, this is very relaxed, so have a cup of tea ready because this may be a bit of a weird video. Also, of course, on the plus side, the delivery man complimented my hair, which was always lovely. I know I ran up those stairs so fast. Whew. Just a brief little background on me and sort of why I'm so passionate about mental health. So when I was younger, when I was like 13 till 17, I suffered with an eating disorder, self-harm, and very low mood, if you will. Now I'm 23 and I still suffer with anxiety. That is sort of why I'm so passionate about mental health. And also I'd quite like to be like the person that I needed when I was younger as well. Sorry, I'm still so out of breath. Also know that all of these answers are going to be coming from like my own personal experience, my own personal opinion. So let's start. Do you ever feel lonely despite being surrounded by people who care about you? If so, how do you cope with these feelings? So this is definitely something that I experienced when I first came into London. So sort of like mid-August, September, my mental health took a bit of a dip. And I sort of thought that when I came into London and I lived with my friends and I saw my friends more often, that it would sort of just completely go away and I wouldn't feel lonely or sad or anything anymore. And so when I first came into London, I sort of experienced my first time of being around people and feeling like that. And it is quite a worrying feeling when you are surrounded by people and you still feel lonely or sad, because I sort of thought that would be like the be all and end all fix, which obviously it doesn't work like that. But yeah, so the first week particularly, there was a few occasions when I sort of surrounded by the people that I love and care about and they care about me, but I had to sort of remove myself for a couple hours to sort of like socially recharge, if that's the best way of describing it, because I felt like it was a bit too much for me to deal with. I mean, it was horrible at the time because I felt like I needed to be by myself, and that's not something I'd ever really experienced before. I guess the best thing to do really is voice your sort of feelings to those people around you. If you're surrounded by people who care about you, they obviously want the best for you and they don't want you to feel this way. And obviously it's easy to say like that they don't want you to feel this way and therefore you should talk to them, but obviously it's harder to make that first step than it sounds. But talking to people is honestly the most important thing. I can guarantee you that's going to be a theme when answering all these questions, is talking to people about how you feel is so important, and it is the best way to overcome any sort of feelings of sadness or loneliness or anxieties, because the people around you just want to support you as well. And just making sure that you are having some time with just you. So as I said, with me, I had to step out of situations because I actually needed to sort of like breathe a little bit and focus like on myself. And in those times, although they're hard and you have to sort of reflect, they're important for you to be able to like move forward and sort of like say, okay, well, how do I get out of the way I'm feeling? How do you stay motivated and productive? So I really don't stay motivated and productive. I definitely spoke about this before in maybe a vlog, I'm not sure. But I think there's a lot of pressure at the moment to stay really motivated and stay really productive and like be constantly, you know, doing a home workout or waking up at 5 AM with a morning routine. There's so much going on at the moment that it's really important to make sure that you acknowledge that, okay, some days you might feel productive and some days you might have a really good day, you might feel really motivated and like smash it, but there's also going to be a lot of days where you're not able to do that, and that's absolutely fine. Like for me personally, I know that lockdown has been really like emotionally exhausting, both previously and before. In fact, this whole year there's been so many things going on in my life that have made me so emotionally exhausted a lot of the time, particularly with like ongoing mental health struggles that I'm having and a lot of people are having right now. That is so emotionally taxing that I sort of almost wake up tired, or some days I just don't want to do anything, and forcing yourself to do something on those days is almost counterproductive because you're not giving yourself that time to like properly breathe and to properly like acknowledge the way you're feeling. So, like, we're literally living through a pandemic. It's something that our generation has never ever seen before. A lot of the time I'm very unproductive, like a lot of the time I'm very unproductive recently. It's just the way that sort of it is. On the flip side, there are cases where you kind of need to almost be productive. So for example, if you're at school, if you're at uni, if you have work, like we can't just completely shut off all the time. But if you don't allow yourself time to like actually breathe and be unproductive, then you're going to burn out much more intensely and not going to be able to get anything done. Oh god. So I think the key to staying motivated and productive is allowing yourself to feel unproductive and unmotivated for some time. Okay, so there's a lot of questions on how to deal with weight gain. So I'm going to sort of address this as a whole. So in terms of dealing with weight gain, I do think society in general has made us very much believe that weight gain is a negative thing, and I think it's anything but that. I think it's important when viewing weight gain is to take the pressure off of it. I would, for example, not look at my weight. If it was something I was struggling with and it was something that I got very much in my head about, I would 100% remove the trigger, which is the scales or the conversations about weight, which obviously is easier said than done. However, it is important to remove the triggers in situations like this. The other thing I want to say is, with eating disorder recovery per se, there's a lot of talk around target weights and goal weights and healthy weights, and if you haven't struggled with an eating disorder before, or particularly anorexia, you're sort of set a weight which is beneficial for you to reach. However, there is a lot of emphasis on this, which is such a flaw in recovery in general, because upon reflection, so now looking back at this, I can see that by focusing on a goal weight, regardless of whether it's a healthy weight or not, the emphasis is still on the weight, regardless of you are losing weight or gaining weight. You'll still have a fixed number that you're aiming for, and therefore when people overshoot this weight, which is another whole term that I've learned recently, but it wasn't a thing when I was in recovery, when people overshoot this weight, they then get negative energy surrounding that, and they see that as such a negative thing. But in reality, your weight is not meant to stay at one level for your whole life. If you think about the amount of things that are going to happen in your life, like, you're not going to stay the same weight as you are 16 as you are 40. There's going to be fluctuations in your weight, there's going to be fluctuations in your body. So if you put so much emphasis on staying this exact weight, then you're firstly missing out on a lot of things in your life, and secondly, you're adhering to society's idea that that is what you need to do, when in reality it's physically impossible. So if you are lucky enough to be able to carry a child, if you want one, then your weight is going to massively change. If you get ill and you can't eat for a few days, your weight is going to change. If you go on holiday and you travel for ages, your weight is likely to change. Like, there are so many aspects of your life where your weight is going to change, but we put so much emphasis on weight that people only focus on that, and you forget about the other aspects of your life that weight is not a part of. Me sitting here and just saying, like, don't focus on it is obviously hard to do. I know when I was actually struggling with my recovery and struggling with weight gain, because everyone, for the most part, a lot of people struggle with weight gain because that is just the way that we are taught in society, that we need to struggle with weight gain and that weight gain is a negative thing, when, as I said, in reality it is absolutely not a negative thing, and for many people can be a very, very, very beneficial thing to gain weight. However, if you are looking for more practical sort of ideas to mentally deal with weight gain other than removing scales, I found it very motivating personally to focus on the aspects of weight gain that I particularly wanted. So for example, I wanted to grow boobs. That's what I was focusing on. I wanted to grow muscle and a bum. These are the aspects of it I focused on. Now, this may not be a good mentality to focus on in the long run. However, for those small amounts of self-doubt and those really difficult times with weight gain, I would spend a lot more time trying to focus on, okay, well, I'm gonna gain some boobs from this weight gain, or I'm gonna gain a bum from this weight gain, or I'm gonna be able to lift really heavy weights, and all this. Like, that was the motivator for me when it came to weight gain. As I said, although it's a long-term thing you want to be focusing on, you want to be focusing on trying to remove the relationship with weight and weight gain being a bad thing. However, for the short term, I think it's useful to try and sort of focus on the areas which you may want to gain weight on. It was boobs for me, I'm not gonna lie, it was. How did you manage to gain your self-love confidence and keep it? Okay, so this is interesting because I would say in the past, let's say, well, 2 years ago I first started my channel, and I would say that took so much balls to do for me that it was something that I felt really not confident in myself. That's when I was 21. Oh, was I too early? Oh god, I was 21 2 years ago, that's kind of gross. So even when I was 21, I still wasn't confident in myself. And then now 23, and I'm much more confident than I ever was before. But I would say even over 2020, so this horrible shit show of a year, I have developed so much more confidence than I ever have before. You don't wake up every single day confident, and you're not gonna wake up every single day confident for the rest of your life. I think every day we're sort of changing and we're finding new parts of ourselves that we like, and maybe some parts of ourselves we don't like. And so consistent confidence is very hard to achieve and almost impossible to achieve every single day. In fact, no, I'm gonna go ahead and say it's impossible to be confident every single day. In my opinion, you're always going to have self-doubts, and you're always going to have areas of yourself that you're not going to believe fully in, whether that's your appearance, where you conduct yourself, or your personality. There's always going to be areas where you're not confident in. For me personally, my confidence has grown more significantly in the past 2 months than it ever has before, because I'm truly overcoming any insecurities that I've had in the past, and I'm like fully letting myself feel really insecure to be able to overcome these insecurities, if that makes sense. So I'm always going to use my eyebrows as an example with this, because It's just an obvious one for me. When I was younger, I grew up with these eyebrow, I should say, and that was not a good thing for me. That was a big source of my insecurities, and still was up until, I'm gonna say, a couple months ago, until I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna grow them out. I'm just gonna grow them out and see what happens. And the initial growing out phase was so scary, so terrifying, full of comments from other people, just like a really bad confidence time. But I truly think that from doing that, I've become way more confident in who I am, way more confident in it seems ridiculous, but way more confident in myself, way more confident in my eyebrows, because I faced the insecurity head on, and now I don't feel like that's an insecurity anymore because I embraced it. So although the initial like was really intense, and the initial like insecurity was really intense, once you sort of like overcome that initial fear, then you've got to own it. And that's how I feel with like my eyebrows, or like say starting this YouTube channel. Like the initial fear is so big, but it leads to so much more confidence in the long run. So you kind of just have to like embrace that. If that's whatever that is, if that's growing out your eyebrows, if it's starting a YouTube channel, if it's changing your style, like the initial uncomfortable period is always going to be worth the long-term confidence you're going to gain from doing these things, and like truly just sort of like becoming yourself. That's how I've sort of just maintained my confidence now, I guess, and how I've grown my confidence is just honestly just by challenging the insecurities I have and really thinking about them. Believe you me, if I can grow out my eyebrows, like 15-year-old Helena is honestly quaking. And it is tough to try and go against the grain per se and be yourself. I do think a lot of society is built around people not wanting people to be different, or people being themselves. So like I'd get called cringy or embarrassing or weird. I mean, I call myself weird, but you know what I mean. A lot of the time, even just from doing this or dancing or changing my appearance, like people just don't want you to do your own thing. And so I think a lot of my confidence comes from just doing my own thing and just saying, okay, yeah, I am weird. It do be like that. I like being weird, so anyway. So similar, what makes you feel confident asking for a very insecure friend? So firstly, it makes me sad that anyone would be insecure, but as I said, I think it's a symptom of the world that we live in, is feeling insecure. But what makes me feel confident per se is embracing who I am. I wouldn't even say my confidence really comes down to my appearance overall. It comes more down to me overcoming my insecurities little by little. As I literally just said, whether it's my eyebrows or talking to a camera or dancing, these are all things now that make me feel so confident that once were massive insecurities of mine. I think there's something so amazing in finding confidence through your insecurities, saying, okay, well, this is me. Take it or leave it. Take it easy. Another thing that makes me feel confident really is learning to ignore opinions of others. I've had to deal with this quite a lot recently, and I've been thinking a lot about it recently, and it's that the opinions that you get from others that are negative make you question yourself or make you feel bad about yourself. But then I personally, so if someone calls me ugly, I personally think the idea of calling someone ugly is way more ugly than anyone's appearance could ever possibly be, and therefore I wouldn't want to be friends with that person. If someone makes a comment about my appearance, the way I act, who they think I am as a person, that's not someone I want to be friends with, and therefore their opinion shouldn't matter to me, because I think their behavior is ugly, which I think is way more powerful or telling of an individual than someone's appearance. So that's sort of just the way I've been trying to manage other people's opinions at the moment, which helps me feel more confident. Okay, sorry. Tips for dealing with bad body image. Okay, so personally for me, if I am struggling with my body image, I will wear baggy clothes. I will avoid social media. I will avoid looking in the mirror, because if it's something that I am struggling with, then if you keep fixating on the area that you are feeling insecure with, whether that's your body, your appearance, comparison, I will remove the source of the trigger and just sort of ride it out. Bad body image is such a horrible place to be in, and we all go through times where we feel like that. As I say, I still do now, I still have bad body image days, but in those days, removing the trigger is the most important for me, and sort of riding it out, because you can't just like snap your fingers and bad body image goes away. That's not how it works. But also the other thing I want to say is I'm trying to rationalize more with myself. So if I'm having a really good positive body image day, and the day after it is still potential for me to wake up and feel really bad about myself, realistically nothing would have happened between the day before, or say even the week before. Say I had a really good week and then a really bad week. Nothing has happened in these 2 weeks physically. It's impossible physically for there to be any change in those 2 weeks, like long-lasting physical change. Still, there's going to be no physical changes between 1 week and another week. It's all going to be mental changes, and therefore it's all driven by the way that you feel about yourself, and the mentality you have towards yourself is not necessarily about what you actually look like. And so I've been trying to focus on more of like that when I'm thinking about my bad body image, and the fact that it is just in my head realistically. How to feel like your mental health struggles are valid when there are people worse off than you. Okay, so mental health and mental illness, they are very, 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 very competitive illnesses. They thrive off comparison, and they thrive off being, the best that they possibly can be. So this is, I'm talking specifically about eating disorders here. So comparison online, or comparison with your friends, or just comparison in general in the world, is the most toxic thing that you can do, and it will be fueling your eating disorder or your mental illness. People will always have it worse than you, regardless. There's always going to be someone struggling more. There's always going to be someone with the worse off situation than you. But if you view the world like that, then you're never going to allow yourself to feel how you feel. Similarly, if you feel really happy, there's always going to be someone feeling more happy than you. It shouldn't put down your feelings. Like, I think you really have to focus on yourself and completely take away the idea of other people to some extent, because people will always have it worse, but it doesn't discredit your struggles. Similarly, it doesn't discredit your happiness. If you've worked really hard for something and you've got it just because someone else got there faster, it doesn't discredit that you got to your end goal. It doesn't matter what that person is or what that person is going through, because it's you and you need to focus on you. How do you explain to others why you're not okay when nothing happened, just feeling invalid? Similarly with the last question, there doesn't have to be an explanation for the way that you feel, which is also another sad thing about mental health, is it makes you believe that there has to be a reason as to why you feel sad, when in reality there doesn't. Sometimes people just feel sad in the same way that you can wake up and just feel happy, you can just feel sad, you can just feel anxious. It's just the way that our brains work sometimes. I think you have to step cautiously when you're talking to other people about it, because you don't need to give an explanation as to why you're feeling a certain way. Firstly, there may not be a reason why you're feeling a certain way. I know that recently my mental health has been all over the place, and there has been times when I have just not wanted to move, and there hasn't been a specific trigger. It's just the way that I felt that day, and I've just felt very, very, very down, but there hasn't been like a specific thing that happened that day. But you shouldn't have to explain that, and it doesn't discredit your validity of your feelings if there isn't a source of the reason. So I just think focus on the fact that you don't have to tell someone why you're not okay. You just have to say, I'm not feeling okay, I just need you to listen to me right now. You don't have to explain yourself. How to stop comparing yourself to others is similarly back with a lot of other things that I've said so far. But firstly, remove the source, get rid of the trigger, and social media is such a huge trigger for me with my comparison. Also, I think it's really important to stress that comparison is never ever going to get you anywhere, literally ever. I guess think about when you're older, it's not going to really matter what that person looked like at this age or what that person was doing at this age, because when you're old and when you're 80 years old, like, you're just going to have your life to reflect on. You don't want to have spent your whole life worrying about having the same amount of followers as this person, or losing this amount of weight as this person, or looking like this, or having a morning routine now. Like, focus on you and your journey, and that is all that you need to do, because when you're older and you're reflecting on your life, you want to make sure that you're reflecting on your life and not others. Okay, so how long did it take you to fully recover? So firstly, it doesn't really matter for you how long it took me. I know that it could be a source of relief to know how long it took me. Similarly with people's mental health, people's recoveries are all going to be different, and for some people their recovery will take years and years and years and years, and some people it's not going to take half as long. So for me personally, I was in treatment for a year from the age of 17 and I got discharged at 18. I would say that that was the end of my clinical recovery, but after 18 I still had to overcome a lot of issues that I had, and I would say that it's only up until the past, say, 3 or 4 years that I've fully felt absolute relief with all kinds of food and body concerns I may have had. As I said, for some people it's going to take a lot longer to overcome those hurdles. For some people it's going to take a lot shorter. So it's really down to the individual, and like really trying to push yourself to challenge yourself, because that's all recovery is. It is really, really, really challenging the way that you feel, in a similar way to feeling more confident, to feeling more self-love. Like, it's all down to challenging the way that you feel. Like, the way that you feel more confident, the way that you go through recovery, the way that you gain weight is by challenging the insecurities that you have because of the way that we're taught to feel. Like, don't forget, this is all just because of the way that we're brought up and the way that, like, society, we don't have insecurities when we're like 5. Like, this is all just because we're told that we have to look a certain way, act a certain way, do a certain thing, that it makes it very hard to be yourself and very hard to be confident and very hard to recover from mental illness, because we're constantly told that we shouldn't act in the way that we should. Oh, I could talk about that for ages. So how do you cope with anxiety? So this is a big one, because my anxiety has been really bad recently, and the last time I experienced like a proper almost anxiety attack was a couple weeks ago, when I was going out. Obviously this was before lockdown, and I genuinely had like a very, 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 very close encounter with an anxiety attack. I was extremely hyperventilating and crying and just had a really bad time just because I had to leave the house and go and meet someone. I managed to get myself out and go there, which was huge. Like I didn't think that I was going to be able to, but I have like the most amazing friends as well. So I think it's really important to talk to people when you're in that kind of state. So one of my friends, she is amazing. Her name's Emma. And she helped me through that time because she's like, really? It's 3? And she was like, okay, we're gonna do this step by step. So put my makeup on. She was there the whole time. Well, she was on the phone. I was texting her the whole time. Then we kind of walked through each step and she was like, okay, we'll go outside, blah, blah, blah. And having her there or having people there to help me in those moments is really important. For me personally, I mean, people deal with things very differently, but I think that's important. Okay, I'm gonna answer 2 more because I've been here for a while and the lighting is really bad. So firstly, how do you deal with the stigma behind mental health? I think that's a really important question. I also think it's really important to acknowledge that firstly, there's a car going past really loudly. Firstly, the stigma around different mental health issues is still very apparent. So for example, anxiety and depression get a lot more media coverage nowadays, which is amazing. I still think there's a lot of stigma surrounding mental health illnesses in general, but they do get a lot more conversation than others. Whereas things like eating disorders, schizophrenia, OCD, all of these things are still very, very, very heavily stigmatized. Personally, I've only ever experienced an eating disorder out of the realm of the ones I just mentioned. Therefore, it makes it harder for me to try and bring about the conversation with these things because I've personally never experienced them. However, the stigma behind them is so much more severe than anxiety or depression because people talk about those less. Doesn't mean there's not a stigma around it. Anxiety or depression, because there still is, there's still a huge stigma around them, but I think it's important to acknowledge the discrepancies between different illnesses and to acknowledge that some people are going to experience a lot more stigma than other people with mental health, and shouldn't be like that, obviously. But for me personally, I don't feel the stigma per se because it's just sort of what I do now. Like I'm so open with talking about it. I mean, there's still, to be completely honest, there's still areas of mental health that I haven't sort of got comfortable with talking about yet. For example, self-harm and sort of suicidal thoughts. I've not really delved into that area talking about on social media as much. I'm sure I will eventually, and only time will tell, but that is an area of my life per se that I haven't fully been able to explore and talk about as much, even though I do think it's important to talk about. But other than that, I find it very natural to talk about mental health now. As I said, there's still some certain areas and things that I'm still struggling with. I'm still trying to overcome myself, well, overcome talking about myself. But the more I talk about things and the more I'm honest and open about my personal mental health, I see the stigma going down in my sort of realm. Like I think the more that it's spoken about, the less stigma there is. Similarly, you just sort of have to bite the bullet and start talking about it, and then eventually, like, if someone's, well, I've never ever received any negative feedback for talking about mental health. But yeah, and the last question I'm going to ask is relatively positive. It says, how to learn to be your own main character, which I just love the phrasing of. Firstly, music for me is literally my life. I have a main character playlist and that just makes me feel just so spectacular. I think main character is a really fun new term that I'm vibing with. Obviously some people think it's really embarrassing, but also I don't care. But I think being a main character is really just about embracing who you are and being in your own lane and not interfering with other people's lanes or not comparing yourself to other people's lanes. Like, you control your life, you're the main character of your own story, and you have to see that in order to act like that. So firstly, get the main character playlist on. Come on. Focusing on what you want to do and not focusing on what society tells you to do, because the whole point of being a main character is that you focus on yourself and that you just do what you want to do. Like, grow out your eyebrows, grow out your leg hair, wear that fun outfit, dye your hair, I can't think of anything else, but do whatever you want to do that makes you feel happy. I think being a main character is literally just coming down to like taking control of how you want to behave and the life that you want to reflect on when you're older. So like, you want to be able to, when you're 80 years old, reflect on a life that you've lived to the fullest, and that you danced in the middle of the streets when it's raining, or you danced in Tesco's, or you went out and ate 24 cookies with your friend. I did that once before. We ordered room service and we got 24 cookies, great times. But like, just these things that just make your life fun and make your life memorable. And if you're constantly worried about what other people are thinking or what other people are doing or what this is going to do to your appearance or what other people think of your appearance or other people's opinions on the way you're acting, then you're not going to be able to manifest like the life that you want to reflect on when you're 80 years old. And that is the best way that I can possibly describe it. And I'm going to end the video here because I've been talking for so long and I think the lighting's been so bad. When I'm editing it back, I'm going to be like, Helena, this is just shocking. But I'm so sorry if I couldn't answer your question, because there was a lot of questions and I didn't answer them all at all, and some of these questions are probably answered really badly, so I apologize. But hopefully that I can manufacture some sort of thing to make this a proper video. But if you like this type of video, then let me know and I'll do them way more regularly. As I said, I answer the mental health questions on my Instagram weekly. This isn't a plug, but it kind of is a plug to follow my Instagram. But I answer them there every week, or I'm trying to answer them there every week. And if you want me to do them more on here, then I will, because I do think it's really important. And I think for me personally, I think I kind of lost this aspect of what I want to do and the impact that I want to have on other people. Like, I want you all to feel good about yourselves, and I think that it is possible for every single person to recover from mental illness and to feel confident in themselves, but you just need other people there to give you a little nudge in that direction, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be there to help along the way. But yeah, if you like this video, let me know in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up, because that does help. And follow me on Instagram and subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.